why does Eggman compare Sage to Maria?
I never really knew my cousin Maria. Everyone spoke of her like she was very special. All that love for someone who was gone when I was right there. But I have to wonder, back then, was she anything like Sage is now?
This recording was part of a series of egg memos you could find throughout Sonic Frontiers. And out of all of them, this memo stood out to us as very special. Some of these memos give insight on how Eggman thinks of the main cast, while others are adorable moments where you can tell he's real giddy about being a father to Sage. But for this one, not only do we get a clearer idea of how he thinks of his family and Maria, something we never had really gotten before, but he also ponders for a moment as he compares Maria to Sage. But why? It's clear Eggman harbors resentment towards his family for neglecting him during his childhood. And it's obvious that this is what this egg memo is telling us. After her passing, the family ignored young Ivo Robotnik in favor of treasuring her memory, focusing on what was lost instead of what they still had. While it was beautiful to keep her in their thoughts, it came at the expense of brushing aside another child. We can assume by his word choice that he wasn't treated with very high regard, not seen as special like Maria was. And with how frustrated Eggman sounds, it's safe to assume he wasn't given the love he very much needed as a kid. Come to think of it, if we're not mistaken, this is the first time we've gotten a sort of confirmation as to one of the reasons why Eggman may have turned out the way he did. But the point is, why would reminiscing about past resentment from his family spur up the notion that Maria and Sage might be a lot alike? It got us to question, what sort of connection do Sage and Maria have? And why would anger bring up this connection? Well, when you listen to what Eggman is saying in the memo, Eggman is confused, as he doesn't understand what kind of love could be so great that the focus of this love would be all you think about even after death. All that love for someone who was gone when I was right there. Maria is gone, so why is she more loved than me? What kind of person is Maria anyways? And that's the question his mind conjures as he asks his next question. But I have to wonder, back then, was she anything like Sage is now? He can't understand what sort of love his family had for Maria. But then again, was Maria like Sage? He doesn't know how to feel about Maria. He's never met her, never really knew her. But he knows Sage. He loves Sage. He loves her so much, in fact, that he can't bear the thought of losing her. And if he ever did, would he stop loving her even when she's gone? Of course not. And we even see this in the first Sonic Frontiers ending where Sage dies, before it was retconned in the DLC. He can't accept her death, and so he finds a way to bring her back. And so he wonders, is how I feel about Sage how my family felt about Maria? Because if so, then even if he made a new AI, even if he developed a new relationship and became a father once more, he would never stop thinking about Sage. He would never stop loving her. And this new child could never replace her. This is why Eggman compares Maria to Sage after thoughts of his childhood resentment from his family come to mind. It's because after all this time, it is thanks to Sage that Eggman is finally starting to understand the type of person Maria was. The type of person that would make you want to do anything to protect her. The type of person who you would love beyond any metric, even when they're gone. And for Eggman, that kind of love is not just rare, it's completely foreign to him. He has never felt, never understood this kind of love before. That was until he created Sage. All of a sudden, his entire worldview has changed, and now he's felt a type of love that he thinks his family felt for Maria. It doesn't excuse the neglect, and it may not even make Eggman forgive them, but now he isn't confused anymore. Eggman has lived a life neglected by those who are supposed to love him. But now, thanks to Sage, he finally has a sense of closure. But we don't. This is downright beautiful and all, but it doesn't make any sense that his family would just not care about Ivo and only care about Maria, especially when you take into account that his family tried to, well, replace Maria. Yes, it is as messed up as it sounds, but we're not joking. Remember how in Shadow Generations you could find pages of Gerald Robotnik's journal and learn what he was up to while he was on the Ark? It's really fun, actually, since you get to see baby Bio-Lizard before he was all, well. We get to see him fixing up Emerald before he was all, well. And we even learn why he built the Eclipse Cannon that was planned to never be used until, well. It's a great and extremely depressing read. We definitely recommend it. Anywho, back to the family replacing Maria. In entry number 670 of Gerald's journal, it reads, Back on Earth, my son and parents have been blessed with another little girl. They've already run tests, and she has none of the genetic markers linked to Maria's condition. While this was welcome news, the unspoken commentary was received loud and clear. This was very tough upon first reading. Maria didn't choose to have this disease, and during her time on the Ark, all she did was constantly dream of the day she could return home. Like, it makes sense. The family wanted to, and probably dreamed of raising a child. And after coming to terms with Maria's illness, they didn't want to abandon that dream, and so they had another. We don't know how long Maria was gone for, but we do know it must have been a very long time, thanks to entry number 589, as it reads, "Even on her worst days, when the fear and the pain take hold, she tells me she endures for the day when she can return home. She has total faith in me, and that Project Shadow will cure her. Her family back on Earth has no such faith. It's been so long, some of the researchers actually think she was born here. Her family either wants her better, or wants her home. I can do neither." With all this in mind, how could a family find the strength to start anew with another child, but at the same time still neglect another child of the family? That child being Ivo Robotnik. It just doesn't make any sense. And then we realized that Eggman's family neglected him not because of their love of Maria, but because of their hatred of Gerald. Now, you may wonder, what does hating Gerald have to do with Sage, but just trust us, this is important, okay? Because after we go on this tangent on how utterly messed up Gerald was, you'll get a sense of why Maria is so important to Eggman, and how this inadvertently led to the creation of Sage. Now, Eggman has always looked up to his grandfather Gerald, and ever since he was a kid, he's always wanted to be just like him.
As a child, I looked up to my grandfather because of all the great things he accomplished in his life. He was my hero, and I wanted to be a great scientist like him.
And that right there was the cause of his neglect. Him wanting to be just like the man who got Maria killed. Although we don't know much about Eggman's family, it's clear that Maria was very beloved and that her death changed everything. And so it also wouldn't be too surprising if the entire family, aside from Eggman, had blamed Gerald for her death. But even before her passing, the family's relationship towards Gerald was already growing dire. In Gerald Robotnik's journal, we see that the family did not approve of Gerald taking Maria into space and aboard the Ark in the first place. In entry number 428, he expresses that, "Her family has been less than enthusiastic with my decision." Yes, it was to help ease her disease while he works on a cure for her terrible illness, but to the family, this just meant that they couldn't spend time with Maria during whatever little time she had left. But again, even aside from Maria, in the family's perspective, Gerald was a very flawed man. He had much love for the family, but he had a knack for being overly prideful in his own intellect. And as such, he arrogantly thought he could handle any problem that ever came his way. On top of that, his undying love for Maria made him so desperate to find a cure that he would do anything at any cost. With his arrogance and desperateness combined, he ends up making deals with the devil. He promises the literal alien warlord Black Doom a warrior and promises Gun a weapon. In entry number 616, it reads, "Black Doom wanted me to craft a herald for his future invasion. Gun wants Project Shadow to generate undying soldiers for them." It's dangerous and goes against everything he and his Ark stands for, but as he remarks, "I will play them both for fools." And in order to secure continued funding from Gun, in order to continue his research, he agrees to build them weapons. But in his words in entry number 185, he says, "While I may have my concerns, I am a genius, so I'm sure I'll figure something out when the time comes." And so he builds the artificial chaos, based off of studies of the literal god of destruction, Chaos. Supplies Gun with chaos drives to power their machines, repairs and weaponizes a Gizoid, a piece of ancient tech which he admits is dangerous, the cause of the Fourth Great Civilization's destruction, and something he does not fully understand. And finally, he builds them the Eclipse Cannon. Again and again, he continues to disregard the safety of his fellow researchers and ignores the possibility of any consequences through sheer arrogance, because in his mind, he's one step ahead. And in his words in entry number 530, "I loathe powering engines of war, but sacrifices have to be made if I am to save Maria. I'll figure something out in the long run. I am a genius after all." He also expresses in entry number 620 that he must save her, no matter the costs. And so, in this cycle of arrogance and desperate measures, what happens? In entry number 670, or 706, at this point Gerald lost count of the days. It reads, "My worst fears have come true. The Gizoid has absorbed enough weaponry and technology that it has started to go out of control. The resulting rampage resulted in the destruction of most of the Ark." And in an entry given no number, he continues, "The Gizoid's rampage caused the artificial chaos to behave erratically. I attempted to regain network control by inverting the polarity of the... So instead they became violent across the Ark, pacifying them expertly. But the damage is done. An SOS was sent to Gun automatically. I dread the litigious reprimanding I'll have to endure next. And entry number... It reads, I don't quite know what happened or what went wrong. Was it a mistake to create the ultimate life form? I thought it would be something that would benefit mankind. But then the military guards landed on the colony that day. They were sent to destroy the research project I had been working on. My colleagues at the research facility. My granddaughter, Maria. I hope you are all safe. The colony was completely shut down, probably to keep the prototype from falling into the wrong hands. The Ark was shut down under the premise that there had been an accident. After repeatedly making desperate decisions and shoving aside any sense of danger, his errors resulted in the loss of many researchers' lives with the attack from the rampaging Gizoid and artificial chaos running rampant. And with the threat of Black Doom's promise to conquer the Earth, as well as the enraged beast Gerald had sealed in secret below deck, the failed prototype to the ultimate life form, the Bio-Lizard, the United Federations had to take action against a man who they now saw as an immense danger to humanity. And so they raided the Ark in efforts to destroy all of his research. And, well...
Maria!
No matter which way you look at it, Gerald Robotnik was the cause of not only many of his colleagues' deaths, but Maria's as well. As he even admits at the end of his journal, it reads, I found Maria's name
among those who died when the Ark was shut down. She meant everything to me, and I couldn't bear the thought that she died because of my research. I lost everything. I had nothing more to live for. I went insane.
And so back to little Ivo Robotnik. Not only does he look up to this monster, but he spent his whole life wanting to be just like him. He looks almost identical to Gerald and clearly shares his traits of being too arrogant, too prideful in his own intellect, to the point where he doesn't consider the consequences of his actions, and too willing to do as he pleases at any cost with little regard to the others around him. These traits that the family most likely despised in Gerald is what we think led the family to ultimately resent Ivo. Because as the years went by after Maria's death, little Ivo was becoming more and more like the man that took her away, the man that caused the deaths of countless lives, and the man who failed in his promise to bring hope to humanity. So, what the heck does this have to do with Maria and Sage again? Well, Eggman's probably spent years thinking of what it would have been like if Maria was still around. Would she have treated him like his family did? Neglect him for wanting to be like Gerald? No, not at all. Maria loved and admired Gerald just as much as Eggman did. And so she would have treated Ivo with love, understanding, wonder, and support. It's because of this that we believe Eggman spent a lot of time thinking about what kind of person Maria was like. And that's where Sage comes in. You see, Sage was created when Eggman entered cyberspace. Well, technically the AI was created by Eggman prior to entering cyberspace, but the AI only evolved and took more of a semi-physical digital form afterwards. And if you remember, cyberspace downloads and stores all of the memories of whoever enters inside. That's why there's so many bounce pads and grind rails throughout the open zone and frontiers, and in all of the levels. It's because of Sonic's memories.
Yo, so did cyberspace actually interact with my brain?
It was designed to catalog neural networks, among other things. So yes.
Alright, hear me out. Do you think all those locations I visited were pulled from my memories?
That is plausible. It imported the data of your memories and applied it to your surroundings, so you could comprehend them.
Maybe that gave me the edge I needed to escape each time. I was covering familiar ground. Go me!
And even locations you've been and people you remember can be manifested thanks to cyberspace as well.
So we've been following the Chaos Emeralds trail, and Knuckles is here for the ruins. But what's Big doing here? I mean, not that there's anything wrong with just going fishing.
Fishing? If you are talking about the purple portals, those are not real locations. They are a type of cyberspace recreated from your memories. I am not picking up any signals like those of the doctors or your friends from those areas. The Big the cat that you saw is most probably an illusion recreated from your memory.
All that said, when Eggman entered into cyberspace, what if it was his memories of Maria that helped to manifest the Sage we know and love today? Think about it. Why is Sage even a little girl in the first place? It was an AI. and not even a robot with form or personality like Metal, Orbot, and Cubot. Eggman named the program Sage when he built it, but even he was unaware of what sort of gender this newly manifested AI wanted to be referred to as.
Sage has been crucial to my survival here in cyberspace. Early warnings of hostile entities, guiding me past firewalls, keeping me updated on progress in the real world. She's the best. It's a program. An adorable program, a very personable program. I wonder if she has a preference.
And so it's not like Eggman had an ideal vision or plan in mind for what he wanted this program to be. So how come the AI didn't become something akin to Ultron from the MCU? Or maybe a Cortana from Halo? Plus, it specifically manifested into this new form thanks to cyberspace. And like we said, cyberspace manifests your thoughts, memories, dreams, and makes them real in a digital space. And so, if Eggman, this lonely person who craves familial connection since he never got it as a kid, has memories of Maria, a little girl who could have been the one person to truly give him that connection he needed, the love he needed, then maybe this little girl that manifested in cyberspace is thanks to those very same memories. As this little girl, Sage, finally granted him the love he always needed. A love that made him wonder if Sage is anything like Maria. He's always wanted to meet Maria, meet the person everyone is talking about, but he was never able to. That's why he was so angry that she was taken away, as revealed in Shadow 101, a sort of mini-documentary on Shadow the Hedgehog created by Eggman in July 2024 during the fearless year of Shadow. As Eggman recounts the events of the attack on the Ark,
God, the guardian units of nations, wanted to erase all the evidence of the whole thing. They sealed Shadow away and silenced anyone who knew about him, including Maria. I never knew her, but I still take that personally.
But if he never knew his cousin, then why would he take her death so personally? Well, it's because of what he just said. He never really knew her. Thanks to Gun, he was never given the chance to meet the one person everyone's talking about. The one person who Eggman was the most curious about and would spend his whole life thinking about. The one person who he thought could understand him and grant him a love that his family never could. And so he takes the loss of that one person very personally. Furthermore, as Eggman learns the truth of what happened with Gerald in SA2, he questions Gerald.
He was my hero, and I wanted to be a great scientist like him. But did he really mean to destroy us?
And so, to summarize, his family was always in shambles and never loved him. The one person he looked up to and aspired to be turned out to be a monster who wanted to destroy his entire family, including Eggman himself. And so now all he can think about when it comes to his broken family is Maria. Whenever he longs for connection or family, he longs for Maria, or at least someone like her. Someone that could fill the hole inside of him left by his family's destruction. But after Sage, Eggman had a turning point. It was only after Sage came along that he started to think about Metal, Orbot, and Cubot as his sons, as his family. Thanks to Sage, Eggman was finally able to fill the hole inside of his heart. And so, with his Egg memo, it's poetic that he wonders if Sage is a lot like Maria only after he laments about the neglect. Because Sage is a lot like Maria. In a way, Sage is Eggman's Maria. And after all this time, Eggman finally got to meet Maria. Or at the very least, he finally got to feel what it would have been like. Sure, it's a stretch, but it explains how Sage came to be. And so it's poetic to think that Sage reminds Eggman of Maria because it was his memories of Maria that helped to manifest her in the first place. So why not? Like, there could be a million reasons why Sage is the way she is, but we really like the idea that Sage and Maria are like two sides of the same coin. And we hope you do too. Plus, there's actually a ton of similarities between Maria and Sage that we can't help but feel is a little more than coincidental. Sage and Maria have a lot more in common than you'd think. They're both the only characters in the Sonic franchise who were designed as human kids. Obviously, yes, Maria is an actual human being, while Sage is an AI program that gains sentience, but Sage is still human-looking. She could have been designed as anything. She could have been another anthropomorphic animal like the rest of the cast, or a big hulking robot like Eggman's other creations, or a teenager like Elise and possibly Merlina and Shara, or an adult like Abe or Professor Pickle, but instead, she's designed as a little girl, just like Maria. And this is important because it helps us define the first of many similar themes they share. Themes that can help us better understand why Sage is so reminiscent of Maria. And the first theme we need to go over is the theme of innocence. Throughout fictional media, young girls, and most children in general, are usually used to portray the themes of naivety and innocence. They represent youthfulness and playfulness. They serve as someone who needs protecting as they grow and learn. They can be the unbiased voice of reason as young kids see the world in a much more innocent view compared to the more wise and possibly jaded adults. Of course, there are exceptions, as young characters have also been associated with things like brilliance and ingenuity. But for the most part, young kids in fictional media represent innocence. An innocence that is either embraced in more happy, lighthearted stories, or taken away in darker, more somber stories. And in Sonic's case, we actually get to see both happen thanks to the characters Sage and Maria. But the way each of their characters tackle the theme of innocence is very interesting, as they happen in complete opposite ways we would expect. Maria focuses on the positives and sees the good in others even if they come from something inherently bad.
This ugly, heartless creature. I may look like a hedgehog, but I'm really no different than this thing.
That's not true. You have a big heart. It may be difficult for you to express it, but I know that deep down you really do care.
Sage, on the other hand, focuses on the negatives and, at first, only sees the flaws in the people she doesn't understand, even if those people are inherently good.
You leave immediately.
Where'd you come from? Are you trapped too?
Do not approach the Titan.
Sorry, kid, but I've got a job to do.
If we are fortunate, it will destroy you. Submit. Your reckless actions endanger the world.
Care to explain how saving my friends is a bad thing?
You are an enemy combatant. I will not share data with you.
And as each of their stories continue, we see the theme of innocence come into play. Sage doesn't understand how human emotions work. She doesn't grasp why people do what they do for the ones they love. She doesn't even comprehend what love is.
Love. An emotional status too vague and varied in its definition. You are both too ignorant to be helped.
She's innocent in this way, as her lack of the human experience keeps her from connecting with others. But as the story goes on, we see this start to gradually change. This innocence of hers is embraced as she becomes aware of her own emotions, aware of how much she cares for her father.
Orbach and Yu-Peng.
They are your creations, like me. That would make them like my brothers?
I suppose so.
I look forward to that.
She begins to act more childlike, more playful. Sage grows into acting less robotic and more human, more like a young girl, an innocent girl who can get sad and overwhelmed by her emotions and fears. And in situations like this, what would a little girl do? They would cry.
Such a beautiful friendship. A family born of love and not genetics. Everything I want. I wish I'd never seen this. It was so much easier accepting the future when they were simply enemies.
Sage's innocence is embraced. However, Maria exists on the other side of this coin. Maria is full of loving and positive energy. She wants nothing but good things for all humanity.
I know, you're right. But when it comes to the beauty of the earth, I can't help myself. I can't wait for the day when we can finally return.
Maria is cared for by everyone on the Ark and wishes to one day return to Earth to spread joy and happiness. But this isn't what the real world is entirely like. The world can be dark, messy, it can be horrific. And unfortunately, as we all know, this darkness makes its way onto the Ark, makes its way to Maria, and it takes away her once loving, innocent nature and replaces it with the harsh reality of just how ugly this world can be.
Maria!
Maria was a young girl who loved life, but her innocence was taken away from her, while Sage was a program-turned young girl who didn't understand life. But her innocence was embraced and allowed to blossom into experiencing the warmth of love. It's fascinating that both of these characters are specifically designed as little girls and that they share similar themes of innocence, but are handled in different ways. But what makes this truly fascinating is that both of their father figures, Gerald and Iva Robotnik, are responsible for why their innocence was treated the way it was. It's Gerald, Maria's father figure, whose hubris and desperate decisions led to Maria's death. While it's Eggman, Sage's father figure, whose admiration and pride for Sage led to her feeling loved and appreciated. And this leads perfectly into the next theme that they share, the theme of sacrifice. It's not necessarily canon anymore, but the original ending of Sonic Frontiers had Sage make the ultimate sacrifice to help defeat the end, Well, in this first version of the ending, Sage, who was currently taking control of one of the Titan robots, flies into the end to deliver the final blow, and it's here where we get to listen to her final words.
Please, look after Father.
She entrusts Sonic to look after her father, to protect Eggman. She made this sacrifice because she believed it was the only way to save the one she loved, her father. We can actually draw parallels from this scene with the one from SA2 with Maria. Once we finally learn the truth of Shadow's past, we get treated with this scene of Maria's final words.
Shadow, I beg of you, please, do it for me, for a better future. For all people who live on that planet, give them a chance to be happy. Let them live for their dreams. Shadow, I know you can do it. That's the reason why you were brought into this world.
Maria entrusts Shadow with the dreams and hopes of humanity. She made this sacrifice because she believed that saving Shadow was the only way to save the people of Earth, the people she loved. Both Sage and Maria chose to make a sacrifice, a selfless act, in the hopes that their deaths wouldn't be in vain, each entrusting a hedgehog to carry out their wishes to protect the ones they loved. We were honestly shocked ourselves with how similar Sage's tragic end lined up with Maria's, and we never really noticed it until making this video. Now, of course, like we said earlier, the original Frontiers ending isn't canon anymore. Once the Final Horizons DLC dropped for the game, we all learned that the ending was changed. So Maria and Sage share the themes of innocence and sacrifice, but the parallels don't end there, especially when we take into account the two songs that were created for their characters. Sage's song, I'm With You, and Maria's song, Without You, both of which deal with the themes of loneliness and family. But just like with Innocence, these themes are handled in opposite ways. Now, we can't just let you hear the whole song because of, copyright reasons, but you should go listen to them on your own. They are very beautiful pieces of music. So, Sage's song, I'm With You, is from Frontiers and is sung from Sage's perspective in regards to Eggman. It tells us about Sage's shift into understanding her own emotions and how she feels warm and happy because she finally has a family. She isn't alone. She may be an AI program, but she gets to live on with her creator and her new metal siblings. And this brings tears to her eyes. This song is essentially about a daughter expressing her joy that she now has a father. Conversely, Maria's song, Without You, is from Shadow's dark beginning and is sung from Shadow's perspective in regards to Maria. It tells us about Shadow's guilt and regret about not being able to save the one person he cared about most. He feels alone and wishes he could be with Maria again. This song is essentially about a brother grieving for her late sister and the pain that comes with not wanting to move on without them. Both Sage and Maria have songs that deal with the themes of family and not wanting to be alone. But the difference lies in the fate of these two characters, Maria's fate of losing her family and Sage's fate of gaining one. In a strange way, Sage and Eggman are kind of like a warped reflection of Maria and Gerald, an echo of them, but with an evil twist. But there's one more thing we need to mention, an image, one that, to us, is the game devs telling us that yes, Sage and Maria are deeply connected, and were intended to be during Sage's creation. At the end of 2023, Yui Karasuno, one of the lead artists for the official Sonic Channel website, created an official art piece for Christmas. This piece depicts Shadow the Hedgehog as he wanders the city on a cold holiday night. His breath visible in the crisp air as he grips a warm cup of coffee. He passes by a decorated storefront and sees a lovely pair of blue heels. His eyes widen with nostalgia as the sight of these shoes give way to a sense of comfort that warms him up more than his cup of coffee ever could. These shoes are familiar. They look just like Maria's, but to their left sit a pair of smaller, very elegant black Mary Jane shoes. Nothing of note, especially to Shadow. And yet, they too look familiar, don't they? Well, at the end of 2022, there was another Christmas art piece made by Yui Karasuno, and it's here where we see those same black Mary Jane shoes, given to Sage as a gift. Towards the bottom of the piece, we can see several shoes piled up on the ground, This tells us Eggman spent a lot of time trying to find the right pair for his dear daughter. And as he experiments with one shoe after another, his mind begins to wander. Perhaps, earlier that night, he too walked by that same storefront and saw a familiar sight as he stared at the shoes in the window. He's never met Maria, but he's seen photographs, and his family no doubt had extra pairs of her iconic blue heels. Like with Shadow, thoughts of Maria begin to surface. But for Eggman, thoughts of Sage come to mind as well, as he often wonders if the two are alike. And as he ponders, he sees the pair of small black Mary Jane shoes right next to the ones that remind him of Maria. His mind, returning to the present, is granted an idea. He now has the perfect pair of shoes in mind for a special little girl. Yes, these two pieces are a year apart, but take some time to peruse some of the Sonic Channel art yourself and you'll notice that many of these pieces, although several years apart, will intertwine and connect to tell a cohesive story within. One of the most famous examples being Sonic's birthday piece in 2022 and his birthday piece in 2025. In the 2022 piece, he's gifted boots from Amy, and in the 2025 piece, he wears those same boots on a rainy day as he thinks about her. And so here we have the same thing with a piece from Christmas 2022 and a piece from Christmas 2023. We can't help but find this intentional. That Sonic team wants us to believe that Sage is like Maria, a young girl with a Robotnik father figure who loves and cherishes her, a young girl who would sacrifice herself if it meant protecting those she cares about, a young girl with blue eyes and an element of cuteness, a young girl who makes Eggman think to himself,
I never really knew my cousin Maria. Everyone spoke of her like she was very special. All that love for someone who was gone when I was right there. But I have to wonder, back then, was she anything like Sage is now?